Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine18 Tarot Books. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome. I'm here with a VR to Chanel over at ChanelDays and her tag, the Mid-Year Tarot tag. This is one that I've been enjoying seeing other folks' responses to, and so since I hadn't done a kind of straightforwardly tarot or tarot deck related video in a while, I thought, why not come on and share a little bit of what I've been working with and what I've been up to. I have been very tarot content for the first half of 2025. I'll say I've maintained a daily tarot practice consistently for the first half of 2025. I've been journaling a lot with that. I've read at public events a couple of times. I have a few new decks to share with you. I'm not showing only 2025 acquisitions in this VR. I didn't want to be repetitive between the prompts. So the decks that I'm showing, some are new to me and some are not. But yeah, it's been a good tarot year. I haven't been here so much in terms of tarot tube, but my tarot practice is feeling really good right now as a kind of part of my, overall practice, my druidry practice. Like all of these things are feeling really good. So I'm happy to share some of the tools that I've been working with. I will timestamp in the description box the different prompts and also link to Chanel's video, of course. So the first prompt is deck you've used the most so far in 2025. And 2025 is the first year that I've actually been counting how much I'm using different decks. So what I've been doing is using the month across 2 pages calendar page in my Hobonichi cousin, and for each day just writing down in the box for that day which decks I've used. And so that means used, for the most part, that means used in the context of a reading. If I did 2 readings for myself with the same deck on a particular day, I would write that deck's name times 2 to indicate that there were 2 readings. That's not super common, but it's not unheard of. I'm not counting readings that I'm doing for other people. I'm kind of noting those decks as having been used in the year, but not counting number of readings. I'm only counting readings for myself. Same with decks that I'm using for things like display, like displaying the moon phases or the sun sign that the sun is in right now. Those are things I like to do on my reading table, but I don't count those as readings. Just because they're there, maybe on display for an extended period of time doesn't mean I think of that as using the deck every day, even though I'm looking at it every day. If that makes sense, I'm counting by readings, specifically for myself. And so I have actual certainty this year about the tarot and the oracle that I have used the most so far in 2025. And since it's mid-year tarot tag, I am counting January to June only. We're now into the latter part of July, but I haven't counted July. So the tarot deck that I've used the most in 2025 is the Blue Earth Tarot by Allison Davies. And this is a deck that I got, I think, very late in 2024. I think I got this late 2024. And there was a Kickstarter for this, but I got one of the older copies. I didn't go on the Kickstarter. This is a deck that I had been interested in, for a long time. I just never had really picked up. And I'm really glad I did, because obviously it's the deck that I've used the most so far in 2025. And that was very much in the beginning part of 2025. For me, this is a wintry deck, very much so. I used it a lot in January, February, into March a little bit. And that was some really deep grief time for me. And this deck really was very good for me while I was really, at the depths of that and processing that. I'm really grateful to have this deck. And I think it'll be a regular one for me in winters in general. I don't have a lot of decks in my collection that I would describe as really wintry in their kind of palette or feeling, and this one is, so I'm really happy with that. I also have here the Oracle deck that I've used the most in 2025. And this surprised me a little bit because this is not one that I was pairing with the Blue Earth Tarot. So this was a little bit later into 2025 that I was using this one, and I just couldn't put it down. And that is the one with the Earth Oracle. This is made by Kim over at Abundant Life Tarot here on Tarot Tube. She has a number of decks that she has created. This is the only one that I have of hers. But this is a deck that I really, really love. Folks know that some of my favorite tarot decks are also nature photography. Some folks know that I enjoy nature photography in a very amateur kind of a way myself. And so this goes really well with a lot of other things in my collection. It's a really nice, like it reads quite neutral. I think it works well on its own. Like a 9-card box with this, that's great in my mind. But mostly I've been pairing it. And so this is the Oracle deck that I've used the most in 2025. One with the Earth Oracle. Now, the next prompt is to show a new deck that came into your collection. I've gotten a handful of new decks in the first part of 2025. Not very many, though. Like maybe a handful, literally. I have backed some Kickstarters and stuff, but those are obviously not here yet. So I am showing some 2025 decks. One of the ones that I will show here, one of the new decks that came into my collection is this one, the Bloodlands Oracle. And the Bloodlands Oracle is by Amory Abbott. I have a detailed review or like walkthrough of this deck on my channel. It's a mass market deck. And it's black and white with this amazing matte red. And this deck, I am obsessed with this deck. I have a handful of black and white tarot decks. It's something that I do enjoy. This feels very much aligned with my druid sensibilities. It's a lot of landscapes, kind of natural features, and things like this. And it's really, really beautiful. And you can go on Amory's website and see, you know, the large charcoal artwork. And it's just, I'm sure to see it in person, it's breathtaking, like with the size. There's so much detail. And I can work with this pretty intuitively at this point, but the guidebook is quite good as well, I will say. I think that it's a good accompaniment to the deck. It looks like this. Fits in the box. So for each one it has a kind of upright reversed couple of keywords, and also some of them have suggestions of what happens when particular cards show up together, which is kind of a cool touch. There's a quote from David Abram, whose books I've enjoyed, in the box. So that's new to me in 2025, and one that I'm really glad that I got. A deck that could be better. I struggle with a deck that could be better. And this is not a new deck to me, but a deck in my collection that I've been trying with this year that for me could be better. And I'm on the fence about a rehome, to be quite honest, is the Literary Tarot. This was a Kickstarter for the Brink Literacy Project with tons of different writers and compilation of different artists. It's very cohesive for a compilation deck. I think there's 4 or 5 artists involved. I will say that's very well done. Each card is associated with a work of literature, And different authors chose the pairings. Like, we're invited to pick a work of literature to associate with a particular card. And I was really into this as an idea. I have it in order, actually. It has a lot of gold foiling on it, as you can tell. I have tried to work with this, and I have been having a hard time. And I'm committed to continue to try for at least a while, because I really went in for this Kickstarter. There was a hardcover book separately. I got the hardcover book. I got a kind of expansion pack of cards, which don't make more twist LGBTQIA plus representation a thing that you have to buy a fucking booster pack for. I'll just say that. Didn't love that. But yeah, I bought extra cards. I supported it from very early on. But I find it really hard to work with in practice. Some of that is a cardstock issue. It really, I don't know if this will show, it really clumps. You can see how it clumps. It's hard for me to shuffle this. I think this Kickstarter campaign got really, really large and really overwhelming, and they added on a lot of things. And there's like some technical issues with the box and stuff. Some people had significant issues with some items in terms of the kind of production quality control issues. My copy's not bad in that way, but it's damn hard to shuffle. It's damn hard to shuffle. And yeah, I'm not sure. I really want to find a way that this will work for me, because it's tarot and books. And I love tarot and books. But tarot and books together in a tarot deck is a thing that is proving challenging for me in this particular case, and actually in another case, which I'll talk about later in this video. So that's a deck that could be better. Like, please, the cardstock, no. Deck you're currently using. I always have more than one deck on my table, because I like to have some choices in front of me when I sit down, and I also like to do some pairings. But one deck that I'm using right now that has been out on my table until today, when I'm bringing it down here to show to you, is the Gay Marseille by Charlie Claire Burgess. Everyone will know this deck. This is not a 2025 acquisition, but it's so summery, and I got it out in the context of Pride Month, and it just hasn't been put away ever since. This is one of a few decks in my collection that I would say the palette is almost like beachy, and I enjoy it in the height of summer, for sure. So that's the deck that I've been working with the most of late. Over the last couple weeks, this is the deck that I've been currently using. Next up is the biggest surprise. And there were a couple of decks I could have put here for the biggest surprise. I'll mention another one in a little bit that could have been the biggest surprise. But I guess the one that I will include for this prompt, biggest surprise of the year, and this is a new deck to me this year, is l'Oracle de la Nature Sacrée. This deck, the reason that this deck is a big surprise to me, it's of course an Oracle deck. I have a video up about this deck as well. The reason that this deck is a big surprise to me is because I had no idea that this existed. And to my understanding, this is not a new deck. I stumbled upon it on Etsy while I was looking for something else. Like, I wasn't even looking for a deck, actually. But it came up. I was probably looking for a deck. Let's be honest. I was browsing as one does. And This is so much my style. As an oracle, it's a little bit kind of a cartomancy type deck in terms of how I would read it. The cards are more so titled as opposed to keywords, which is something that I quite like. I do like a limited color palette deck. I'm happy to work with a deck that is in French. There's just a lot about this that I like. It's obviously with the title, The Oracle of Sacred Nature, it's nature based. It has a couple of these kind of significator cards in it as well. It goes with a ton of different things because it's so neutral. I love that fur in here for birth card. It's, yeah, I snapped it up quite quickly and quite impulsively. And it's a huge surprise because I don't know how I had never seen this before. I mean, I think that obviously with something being in a different language or being from a different country, like maybe it doesn't show up in the searches, or maybe it doesn't come up in the same kind of conversations of TerraTube community in the same ways. But if I had seen this years ago when it, whenever it came out, I probably would have gotten it then. But it surprised me in 2025, so that's kind of fun, I think. Next up is deck crush. And I don't ever like the crush question. I'm always curious to see how other people interpret the deck crush. This is not a new deck to me, but the deck that has to be my deck crush in this moment of my life, Terror of the Silicon Dawn by Egypt Darnash. This is an out of print, what was a mass market deck. The title card has a 2011 date on it. And this deck is just queer and weird and, resistant of structure, and yet playing with structure in terms of the deck and the suit system and things like this. It's kind of kinky. It is bright. It's colorful. It's playful. And I just like so much about it. So this is my deck crush. I feel like I will never be as cool as this deck. which maybe works for a crush, right? So as Terror of the Silicon Dawn as deck crush. I'm going to put it back in its bag. The next prompt, favorite single tarot card from a deck. That's a hard one. When you sit there looking at your tarot shelf, and it might be a little bit overwhelming trying to think about that. But I did have something actually come to mind for this. And this is from a deck that's new to me this year. And that I've really liked. This could have also been a biggest surprise because this is a deck that, for a number of reasons, I think in terms of the art style and stuff, is not in my usual kind of, maybe comfort zone's the wrong word. It's not kind of my usual style necessarily, but that I have absolutely fallen in love with, and that is the Lineages of Change Tarot, which is a collaborative deck. And favorite single card, have to know what it will be, is Octavia Butler as the Divine Force of Water. I love this beautiful, beautiful image. And I love this deck. I wasn't 100% sure about it. Collaborative decks and me can work or not. I'm kind of picky about that. Some of the art styles are not art styles that I would usually say that I would, be drawn to necessarily. But This is a really good deck. And the guidebook is really good. The guidebook is big too. You get a lot. For each card, you get keywords, a description, a brief kind of reversal, potential meaning or question to ask yourself. There's a quote and a plant. There's a lot in here, and there's some writings at the front and back as well. I really, really like this deck. This is publisher released, but on a very small or comparatively small anarchist publisher, and it feels like an indie production. It comes with a bag that holds the book and the cards together, and then all of that is inside a large box. Beautiful, beautiful deck. Beautiful favorite single card with Octavia Butler. Next up is a deck that makes you happy. And this also could have been a biggest surprise, because this is one that I have looked at for a long time. I did not get it until this year. I was frankly intimidated by it and didn't know if I would be able to work with it very well. I thought that it would be really difficult for me to use. But then I had a special experience with this deck with a friend, and you know, then it was kind of more in my mind as a deck to get because of that experience. Hesitancies remained, but I got it, and it makes me so happy. And that's the Herb Crafters Tarot. The Herb Crafters Tarot by Joanna Powell Colbert, written by Letitia Guthrie. This deck is so good. It has a good guidebook with meanings and crafting suggestions. Lots of content. I'm not well versed in herbs, and so I was quite nervous that a deck like this would be really challenging for me. Like having plantain for Ace of Water. Like I don't have a strong sense for all of these plants. Some of them certainly more than others, particularly the ones that grow near me, but particularly for the ones that don't. Like I don't have strong associations with, why one would have, cottonwood on this particular card, for example. So I was worried about that challenge. But I love the artwork. I love the Gaian Tarot as well. It's just beautiful. It always caught my eye. But now that it's in my collection, I'm really happy that I took the chance on it. I mean, it's mass market. It's relatively it's not like it cost so much when I wasn't sure. But I'm really, really glad, because it's not difficult to work with. It's not. And the book is good. And there's a kind of system in terms of the numerical progression through the suits and the choice of plants according to suit. So once you kind of get that down, I mean, oak for 7 of Earth. As a druid, that makes me happy. There's a real structure to it that makes it much more navigable, and it's so beautiful. So this is a deck that makes me happy, and I get to think back on nice memories when I use it as well, which is a bonus. Next up is a great guidebook, and I think the prompt was just great guidebook and not great tarot guidebook, so I picked an oracle guidebook. There's several that I've already talked about that could have been in this spot as well. And this is not a new deck to me in 2025, but it's just a guidebook that I've been working with a fair amount in 2025 that I think is really amazing. And that is this one, A Magical Compendium of Eastern North American Trees, Ecology, History, Lore, and Divination by Dana O'Driscoll. Now, this is a guidebook that accompanies the Tree Lore Oracle, which is a deck that Dana made using eco printing. And there's some pictures of the cards in here. And each card has just the title of the tree on it and nothing else. And it's a really beautiful deck, but I think that this is one of these kind of guidebooks that if you are interested in working with trees, whether they're in a more kind of metaphysical way or in a more physical way in terms of, you know, medicinal components and making ink from walnuts or making different crafts and things like that, that this book would be worth getting without the deck. Like, even if the deck you look at and you think you would never use, or it doesn't, you know, it doesn't interest you for whatever reason, I think that there's just so much in here. Hickory bark syrup, wild grape jelly, a dogwood charm for difficult circumstances. Like, there's tons of ideas for connecting with and working with, and obviously, like, we're druids, you know, so that's particularly special. But this guidebook, I just think is one of a handful only in my collection that I would say truly is its own standalone work. There's of course there's sections in it about how to work with the Oracle deck and that, but really on its own, it's a really excellent book. So that is a great guidebook. The next question: what deck do you want by the end of the year or are still waiting on? There are 2 mass market decks that I want by the end of the year that are releasing this year. One of them is releasing in a couple of days, one of them later in the year. And those are Mindscapes Tarot by John Rice and the Lubanco Tarot by E. Lubanco. I do have the Mindscapes Majors Only, and I do have the Indie Lubanco, but I still want both of these mass market. The Mindscapes because it is a full deck as opposed to Majors Only. And the Lubanco because, like, my Indie Lubanco, frankly, is showing signs of love, and I would like the mass market one to be able to kind of take it out and about and take it to friends' houses and so on without kind of taking an out of print indie deck necessarily. There are also some new cards. So those are my wish list really right now. I do have a pre-order in for the Mindscapes. In terms of still waiting on, I confess that I have been a little bit active on Kickstarter as of late. There have been some decks released on Kickstarter that I have been waiting for that all just happened to follow the campaigns in 2025. I also use Kickstarter, I'll say, like, for other things that aren't decks. I occasionally will back a magazine or an ebook or something like that. So I have a lot of outstanding campaigns, quite a few of which are actually not decks, right? I back Uncanny Magazine every year, things like this. But I have quite a few decks that I'm waiting for that are projected to be ready in 2025, which include my friend Fire, the Oracle deck companion to Gentle Tarot, the Greenwood Tarot, the Endless Tarot, the Cracked Amethyst Tarot, and the mini Idiosyncra deck that came with that campaign, the Brady Tarot, which is a deck that I've been looking at for years at this point, and I'm finally deciding to go for it. So I have quite a abundance coming to me to look forward to. So I'm excited for that. The next prompt is which deck hasn't been used yet or barely, but that you want to work with this year. So because I have been counting the readings that I've been doing for myself and keeping track of what decks that I've been using so far, I know exactly how many decks in my collection I have, and also how many of those I've used so far in 2025 and how many I haven't. It's actually not far off from half. I've used almost half of the tarot and almost half of the Oracle decks in my collection in the first 6 months. Some of, the reason that there's decks I want to work with this year that I haven't yet is kind of seasonal association stuff. So, like, there's decks that I really associate with autumn, with spooky season, that I know I'll use this year, but I just haven't yet because we haven't quite gotten there yet, and I don't tend to use them as much in the other seasons. But for this prompt, I wanted to think about something a bit more specific than that in terms of wanting to work with this year. And this is another deck that I've had a bit of a setback with, that's also a literature and tarot combining deck that I really want to work with and that I really want to figure out how I'm going to work with. And it might be a deck study. This might be a deck study for me, actually. And that is the Macondo Tarot. Let me see if I can get it to focus here. The Macondo Tarot. The Macondo Tarot is by Andres Marquinez Casas, and it's inspired by the characters of Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Now, this was a Kickstarter. This is not new this year. And I really liked the idea of a deck, you know, that's really celebrating, you know, the creator says Colombian magic. I liked that. And I really liked the campaign. And so I backed it. The backs of the deck are like that. And this one has quite easy to shuffle cardstock. It's a nice cardstock actually. And it's a pip deck. So we have a suit of tears and a suit of flowers, and there's a suit of butterflies and a suit of fish. And the characters are these really interesting. I feel like it's very playful, kind of a spirit of this deck. And it's unlike anything else I'd ever seen, and I was so happy to back it and support it, and I'm really happy that I did. The setback... This feels borderline embarrassing. The setback that I have experienced is that I DNF'd 100 Years of Solitude. And I did not get very far. I tried. I could not get through 100 Years of Solitude. And I tried. And a lot of it had to do with, like, to be very blunt, the way girls and women are talked about in that book is just not a way that I want to spend my time. So I have a deck that's based very largely on characters from that book, and it's a book that I now don't really feel very inclined to read. I think that what I want to do, and maybe this is a late summer project, is to spend some time on a bit of a deck study with the book that I got to go with this deck, because this was an extra, I think. And I'll just say, this campaign was so good. I even kept inside of the book. I kept the creator, you know, drew on the packaging that it was shipped in. Enjoy it, and sent a little card, you know, personally addressed to each person. Like, just so much thoughtfulness. And it came with this guidebook, little white book that explains something about the figures, and then, you know, some upright and reversed, you know, what you would expect in a little white book. But I also backed for this bilingual guide that has a lot more in it. Prologue, introduction, tarot, symbology in the Macondo Tarot, the majors, the minors, a game, Macondo itself, like there's a lot in this book. And so I think that I need to have this as something that I work with in and of itself, not necessarily hinging on my desire to read or not 100 Years of Solitude. And I'm not exactly sure what that's going to look like. And maybe that means reading something else from Gabriel Garcia Marquez, actually. That's probably the way that I want to approach this. So. And I would say that, like, the book, I've given this a look. I've looked through some of this. The creator talks about patriarchy and some of the issues, right? So I know that that awareness is here, and that makes me want to spend time with it. So I think that that will be one to use this year. Next up, second last question or second last prompt. Favorite video you've made or seen? I haven't made that many, so it's easy to choose something. I would say the favorite video that I've made is my 2SLGBTQIA+ Dex, the sequel video that I made in June for Pride Month. Several years ago, I made a video celebrating 2SLGBTQIA featuring and created Dex, and this year I made a sequel to that video. So in the first half of the year, that was the one I had the most fun filming because I just got to spend a bunch of time talking about great decks that celebrate our community. So that was my favorite video to make. Next up is pull a card for the next 6 months or pick a card whose energy you want to bring in to the next 6 months. I like the idea of drawing a card. I think, why don't we pick, I'm going to pick the Lineages of Change Tarot because then we can read the book. And we'll just do pick a card for the next 6 months as a kind of what's up in the next 6 months. I'm going to spare you any attempt to shuffle on camera because that's just... I'll give it a few overhands on camera. That feels manageable. A card for the next 6 months. We will cut the deck. The Magician. Oh, that's good. The Magician as a card for the next 6 months. And I will just read here from the guidebook. The keywords are harnessing creative power and potential illusion. What often appears to be magic is actually belief met by action. The constantly changing energy of the universe can be harnessed into action by those who believe they can shape change. When we come together, our capacity to shape our conditions grows stronger. Collective magic. Shape this day, this week, this life. In reverse, when we don't believe in ourselves or others, we can become enamored of illusion, attempting to appear magical or easily duped by illusory actions from others. Slow down, get back in touch with your core beliefs. What do you believe most deeply? How can your actions cast a spell to bring that belief into being? For the next 6 months. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again sometime. Have a good one.